What's up, everybody? I'm here with my buddy Larry Carlin. He's Larry. Is that the way you say it?
Well, it's Lawrence, but they said
Lawrence.
we're going to call you Larry
Lawrence
because
of
that's
Arabia.
a nickname of Lawrence.
So Lawrence, Larry,
Yes.
is out here in Colorado. We're on the western slopes. He went ice climbing. We're going to talk a little bit about ice climbing, his life. Maybe what he did in the U.S. military and why he's here today. What's up, everybody? We're back. Larry, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, especially today. Had a great
Is that because you had some
weekend.
Baileys?
I love my hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate with some
I know
alcohol
you
in it?
know. I know you know Lonnie and Darlene, and they make a very good special cup of hot chocolate.
It's made with love.
Yes,
Some TLC, right?
that's absolutely correct.
So Larry, where are you from?
I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
New Orleans.
But my birth certificate says I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, which I know nothing about, or how I got to New Orleans.
So wait a minute, that's confusing. What do you mean by that? Your birth certificate was from some other place.
I was in foster care till I was almost 7 years old.
So you told me you didn't really know your family.
Didn't and still don't.
Never found them.
No, though I'm thinking now about maybe doing that Ancestry website thing.
Yeah, like 23andMe or those different kinds of online databases for DNA testing and stuff.
DNA
Yeah,
testing,
absolutely.
I figured do it at least once, see what happens.
So in New Orleans, you were in a foster care or
Three sets of foster parents, as I recalled. Initially, I thought we moved a lot, but the places were different, the people were different, and now I realize that was three different sets of foster parents. So,
wow.
and then one day, a social worker picked my sister and I up and said, "We're going to take you, and you're going to meet your new parents." And duh, we had no clue. In fact, to be honest with you, I know you're Steve, but I was also named Steven, but I didn't know that till I was 33.
Yeah.
And that's because when I was adopted, they said, "We're going to change your name." Well, 6.5 years old, I didn't even know I had a name.
Huh.
As strange as that may sound, but I really didn't know. So when they said we're going to change it to Lawrence, we're going to call you Larry because that's a nickname of Lawrence, I said whatever.
Yeah.
Fine, and that's the way it was.
So you primarily grew up there in
with adoptive parents in
Louisiana,
New Orleans, yeah.
New Orleans.
Yeah. Which I later grew to love, really enjoy, even though I don't live there today, but the culture, the people, the influence.
The cuisine, the food.
The cuisine, the music, the hospitality,
It's a hopping place.
the people, the friends, the
girls.
They're just wonderful. Yes, they were many.
They always come out there to party. Everybody does, not just the girls. But
well, I'm talking about the ones that actually live there. I don't know about those that come in from out of town. I never actually met those.
What? Never met them on the street?
Well, if
like
it was a one-night stand.
Larry.
2 Canadian girls from Canada. Never mind. I didn't say that. Did
Ah,
I? No.
Larry.
But anyway.
No, I mean, well, thank you for being on the show, for talking.
It's a pleasure being here. I met you.
When did you meet me?
I met you actually.
When was the first time you met me?
I've been living in Florida for 25 years now, so I met you in Key Largo.
That's right. What were we doing in Key Largo?
We were on a hiking event in Key Largo, and I met you and several other visually impaired veterans. And we spent a week.
A kayaking or hiking event?
Kayaking.
Oh, okay.
kayaking, and I remember you distinctly because in the morning sometimes you'd be out there in your kayak, and then turn around and look again, and your kayak was upside down, and then you were back again, and you did that most of the week, and somebody noticed you, and I said, "Oh, that's Steve. He's doing his kayaking thing."
His kayaking thing. I was practicing for a big thing that I accomplished last year in September. And what was that?
I heard y'all did a great job
on the Grand Canyon, right? I was practicing my rolls.
5 of you, 100% blind. I'm visually impaired. I see 30% out of my left eye.
Yep.
But you guys are 100%.
Yeah.
And you guys kayaked the Grand Canyon, and that was phenomenal. I knew each.
Do you think
I
so?
knew most of you on that event. So I thought that that's cool. That's great. You guys did some awesome things.
So
I can't roll over like you do on that.
Yes,
kayak.
you can.
You
just got to do some
I have
training.
To work on that. Yeah.
You got to work on practicing that.
Absolutely.
So Key Largo was the first time we met. Well,
first time we met, and that's when you started to instruct about how we should do the kayaking.
Yeah.
And that was under Team River Runners.
Yeah, Team River Runner hosted the event. It's called an out of sight clinic.
Right.
And some of them are called that. And we bring blind or visually impaired out, and we do some paddling, whether it's on flat water, on the open ocean, or in a sea, or in a bay, or on a stretch of river in Whitewater Rapids. Mm-hmm. So that was the first time I met you. But why are you here in Colorado then? Like on the western slopes. You were just in Ouray for the past few days over the weekend. And what were you doing?
Well, I met you, like I said, in Key Largo, and you called me up in December. You remember?
I do remember.
To go skiing in Crested Butte. And I said, "Oh, sure. I'd like to do that." So I did, and that was December of maybe 2016. And then
maybe it was 2017, February, I think, actually.
Okay, correct. And then February last year, you said, "Hey, Larry, you want to go ice climbing?" Gee, I hadn't done that yet. Yeah. And that was with Paradox Sports. And
a great organization.
Awesome organization. The people are just fantastic. And I was so inspired by it that I actually asked a couple of other veterans to go, and one was able to attend this year with me so that I could share that experience, because out of all the events I've been to, I thought that was the most inspiring.
Hell yeah.
And I had to share that.
And so you're here.
Yeah, I did. And today,
you're eating that microphone, right? It's right on your mouth.
It's
there. You go. Good job.
It is there. I can't see out of my right eye, which is where the microphone is. So I hope
you just got to suck on it. It's just got to be right there in your mouth. No, you got to almost eat it.
If I'm talking funny,
you sound good, man.
You'll know why.
You sound like butter.
See, this is what I like about Steve, is that whenever we're together, not that first time we met, but every time thereafter, we have always had a good time.
Oh, that's
I call him my different brother from a different mother.
A brother from another mother.
Yeah, half my age. Won't tell you how old I am, but he is definitely half my age.
I'm 18 years old, everybody. No, I'm just playing. Well, I'm glad that you came out here and climbed that first time, and that you're back here for a second round. Mm-hmm. And you guys had a great time. You brought a buddy out that you met on a No Barriers trip. I just interviewed a gentleman that works for No Barriers or helps quite a bit with No Barriers just this 2 weeks ago or so. His name is Jeff Evans, and it was cool to have him on the show. Mm-hmm. He's climbed all over the world, the 7 summits. He's a physician's assistant. He's worked search and rescue in the Himalayas, and he he guided Eric Weinmeier, the first
Yes.
blind person to climb Everest. And so
Yes, he did.
you guys were on a No Barriers trip, a No Barriers Warriors expedition.
Yes,
and
it was a 9-day trip and 2 days traveling and 7 days hiking from
in New Mexico.
right after breakfast till 5 p.m. in the evening.
And that was a struggle. That was a challenge.
That was the first time I ever been hiking. You know, you're carrying you got
pack.
your hiking boots on, and 5 minutes after you leave camp, you're crossing wet water,
rivers,
and
yeah.
the temperature was like 50 something degrees at the time, and the last couple of days was in its 40s. And so your feet are wet, your boots are wet, and you're in them all day. But I never found that to be an issue. Then you're carrying a 42-pound backpack, but the way that backpack actually sits on you wasn't an issue. I was only visually impaired.
But you have a
That
visual
was-
impairment.
That was the only issue with me.
But before you go on, like, why do you have a visual impairment? Why are you low vision? What happened?
I have severe glaucoma, and I had several multiple skull fractures when I was in the service, including leaking spinal fluid out of my. It's called a basal skull fracture, where you leak spinal fluid out of your ear, and I think they call it traumatic glaucoma,
Yeah.
and that progressively got worse. And initially, I didn't. Being a Vietnam veteran, we didn't go to VA. A lot of us didn't,
Yeah.
because we were not. They didn't tell us that we could go there.
You weren't
for,
instructed
for anything.
or given
you
a
know.
briefing on
You get a year free dental. That's all you get. Bye. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Yeah. And so for almost 40 years, I never went.
My father was the same way.
Yeah.
He's over 65, 64 now, and he just recently in the last few years has gone to the VA.
Yeah. I was. That's like I said. Only 11 years ago was I able to call myself a veteran, and the first time that someone told me thank you for your service, I cried like a baby. Tears just rolled down my eyes because
That's something that was not normal.
we
Back
didn't get
then.
treated right when we got out. I remember people mocking me. A little over a year after I got out, no matter what I said, no matter what I did, people often referred to, oh, that's because he was in the service and da 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 da, and you didn't have anybody to talk to, and because I think being in the military, it's not like you can go out to any Tom, Dick, or Harry out there and say, hey, look, this is what I did in the service, and they'll look at you and go, okay, so, it's
Well, I mean,
it's a
it was such a
difference.
different time.
Yeah.
Vietnam.
Well, even you in this time.
I think the public have to be primed. The public has to be primed. They have to be. The wars are interesting. When you think of Pearl Harbor and how that kind of sparked war during World War II, and then you think of Vietnam and how it kind of grew and became a war. And then the same thing for the recent wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. When you think about the towers falling, I think if something hits close to home, and people have the this ability to relate to loss, destruction, loss of life. When you think about the wars and how they start, it's kind of interesting.
And it's
I think the public didn't have something to grab hold of maybe then.
no, and it's and it was a crucial time. It wasn't just the Vietnam War. It was about things that were going on in America and the way that people perceived the way the government should be doing what they should be doing. You had Students for a Democratic Society, known as SDS. You had the Weatherman. You had the Black Panthers demonstrating. You had the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and then Martin Luther King, and then Bobby Kennedy. And then at the end of, the decade of the 60s, we landed on the moon. Those were pretty critical and historic events.
Pivotal moments.
Absolutely.
in history.
And I'm proud to say that I was there. I watched, for 4 days the funeral of John F. Kennedy on a black and white TV because no matter what station you changed to, you only had three of them in those days. Tells you how old I am.
Oh no,
You know.
I remember when TV signed off and they played the national anthem.
And you had that color screen that came on the TV and stayed all night until they went back on the air.
Yeah, it was different. I mean, it's so different than today. You're right.
Oh,
You're right.
awesome. And it just amazes me how fast and how far technology has come. But those events that occurred during those days and the 70s changed the way America is and the way we see things today.
And you were a medic, right?
Yes, I was.
In the U.S. Army.
Yes, I was.
And
That was it wasn't a choice because I wanted to do electronics, and they said infantry or medic.
hmm.
And kill or save, and I chose to save. And
No, it's
that's how I went into it. And it's interesting because I was watching Full Metal Jacket, and we know how that happened at the very beginning. If those of you had watched that, but it kind of hit home. Because two guys, when I was in AIT, had hung themselves over the Christmas holidays in the shower, and it's like, who does that?
I think people that
And it's like
feel like they have to give up.
I'm just new to all this, and here already I'm seeing death. And having to deal with stuff. I briefly knew these guys to see this happening. It was just a shock to me. I was I was 18 years old at the time.
Hmm. Was harsh reality. Because people are facing going to war, and so that's a life or death kind of situation when you are a soldier or a warrior on the battlefield and at war. And I don't know what I don't know what people think when they're challenged in that regard, especially when people are drafted. People are actually picked to be part of the uniformed services opposed to volunteering, which
right. And at that time, so many of my friends had been drafted. So it was a mindset. I knew I had to do it. I knew it was going to happen. And that's where I was. But in 1973, things started to change.
yeah,
They decided to do without the draft, but you had to go to the post office and sign this document and get a Class A or A classification, A1, something like that.
Yeah.
And I had to go get that card as opposed to a draft card. And but I was mindset already that I had to do it, and I needed to do it and get it over with because
you were late in the war. That's right. It was
Right.
right at the end of the war, more or less.
right, and they were ending the draft, and they just started to pull the troops out of Vietnam.
Yeah.
And I knew I had left home with those crazy adopted parents I had. I'll say that, but I moved out when I was 17.
Yeah.
And in the senior year of my high school, I only had to take one subject, and I said, well, the heck with that. I'll just go ahead and join the Army. And that's what I did. And figured I'd get my GI Bill so I could afford to go to college because I was already supporting myself.
Create a solid foundation. Yeah.
Right. And didn't know where it would lead me, but it did. And even though technically the Vietnam War was ending, we ended up going back in 1975. So that was March and April 1975.
Yeah.
And we did the evacuation of Saigon. So we processed 150,000 Vietnamese in 58 days on Guam.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine how many? And that was, the temperature was over 100 degrees in the middle of the monsoons. And they turned, we called our place Tent City. you know.
Yeah.
But we did it, and to see for the first time in my young life the faces of people that were desperate, that were crying, that were sad because they're leaving their family, they're leaving their country. They didn't know where they were going
Yeah.
and what stood ahead for them. And the kids, just as bewildered as the parents were. So that had really touched me, and I never really knew about it, how much it affected me till much later in my life.
I think after time passes by, you reflect more on your, past events and experiences. The longer you live, the more wise you become, I guess. Especially the more you experience, and so it makes sense. I mean, the more I grow older, the more I think about my service and how it's affected me, and
Because there's no doubt it affects all of us,
affects the whole world, man.
you know.
The whole world,
Yeah.
but definitely people that are right there on the front lines, working with the people that are directly affected and war torn. So, it's because of veterans like you and other people that have come before me, like my father and grandfather, that have paved a way, a road, a path for us veterans, that are in existence now, and for those future service members that will serve. I mean, it's a great thing. I mean, to have support now, right? Like you were saying earlier, someone
Right.
thanks you for your service, and it makes you feel something,
Yeah, it's like I got my benefits 7 years ago that I didn't even know I even qualified for.
Yeah.
And
And some of those things have just changed. People have fought for, the country. Other veterans, civilians have fought for
absolutely, and I want to say something about that
to
because
increase.
veterans in Washington have really lobbied, and I never really realized that till today. Especially working with the Blind Veterans Association and all the work that they have done for veterans. And you going to Capitol Hill recently,
Yeah,
I understood you went there.
I was there. Yeah,
And
speaking to Congress,
talking to Congress, yeah. And
the House.
when veterans read on the news that they want to cut this and they want to cut that, well, you know what? I would never have gotten any of my benefits had I not been informed about them, and the people that were in the veterans and the other organizations that were in Washington D.C. fighting to maintain those benefits and to get more benefits available for veterans. In fact, I just bought my first house. I'm
Congratulations,
63. I turned 64 in April, but I just bought my first house.
In sunny Miami.
Sunny Miami. Yeah, but it just astounds me the amount of effort that's actually put forth. And when you hear about different things, they want to cut this for veterans and want to cut that for veterans. There's a powerful organization, lobbying organization that says, no, don't do that.
Well, yeah.
And
Or they're fighting for new kinds of research or studies or allocating money for this or that. It's important, and we have to, as a people, rally and come together and build teams to fight for those things.
Yeah, and sometimes I tell people, and I never really thought about it myself. It's like, you see, today, it's been quiet today, right?
Yeah.
You've had a nice day. Nobody's been out there shooting. Nobody's been out there, trying to take over your country or Colorado, right? And people don't realize that it's the military that is out there, sight unseen, that are doing their very best to maintain the privileges that Americans have today.
Our freedoms.
And we sometimes so often take that for granted.
Well, you don't know about it if you're ignorant of it. If you don't live it, or you don't. There's a lot of people that don't spend time with veterans or service members, injured or not. So they have this lack of experience or understanding of what it means to go to a nasty part of the world, or a place where there's no freedoms, there's no dreams, no hopes. It's just survival. And so you're absolutely right, man. But that leads into some other things. Like, you've always been a person that seems to be, as far as since I've known you, someone that's likes athletics, recreation. I have the saying, moving is living. And it seems like that's how you like to live your life. That maybe helps you.
Yes, it's when you said moving is living was your slogan, I said that's it, because
it's like a mantra.
if I don't stay active, I get sick. Meaning I get mentally sick. I get depressed. I don't feel good about myself. I have to run. I have to be physically active all the time.
Yeah.
In order to feel normal. Why that is, they call it PTSD, whatever they want to call it, But the things I do today, I still think I'm 40 years old when I do what I do,
Well, you're climbing vertical ice. So Larry was here climbing frozen waterfalls, basically. Like, imagine people, listeners, viewers, imagine climbing frozen ice, like 80 feet of frozen ice, like vertical. That's what Larry and John were doing this weekend. And, both John and Larry are from tropical kind of, warm environments, sunny California, sunny Florida. And they're out here in, really, cold weather, climbing ice. And they're both service members. Yeah. They've both been through a lot. It's a testament of who they are, really to push past the uncomfortable feelings of being cold and to take on a challenge like climbing ice, which, who wants to climb ice? Like, there's probably a bunch of people thinking right now,
but here's
why the hell would you go climb some frozen water in the mountains?
I don't know if John will join us tonight or not, but what brought John here, I showed him my phone. I said, look, I was doing this. And look, I did this. I did that. Look at this. Look at that. He says, man, at your age, you've done all this stuff? I said, man, I got to do this stuff, So when
he's someone that's not going to be like, you know what? That's an opportunity. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take you up on that.
Yeah.
He's not going to say no, right?
And he does. He did the Marine Marathon.
He's the same thing. Like I asked you.
Same thing. Where
he loves moving.
You have to move.
You got to stay busy.
Yeah.
You can't have an idle mind.
And you know something? I've heard from a lot of veterans, and including myself, and you may say the same thing. If I had to do it all over again, probably wouldn't change a thing. That's the way I feel.
No, I tell people, Larry, do you want to grow up or live a life where, I guess, some people do. You don't want to hurt. You don't want to feel pain. You don't want to see horrible things. But the thing is like, those are the kids, those are the people I meet all the time that have always lived here in the country, insulated from things. They go to work. They go grocery shopping. They go home and watch TV and entertain themselves and go to sleep and do it all over again the next day. And the one thing that you, John, and a lot of and everybody here that's in my studio right now, that's not like on the camera, they've experienced what it means to serve, and the trials, the tribulations, the challenges, and I think that makes you a stronger human being. That makes you should be proud of that. I always tell buddies, I've had friends committed suicide. In the last few years, I had a buddy that took his life. He was a Marine. And I always told him all the time, man, like, be proud of who you are, and you're alive. You're here now today. You know, that it's important to think about what you've been through and where you're going and where you can go. Because, there's some bad things that have happened. There's some horrible things that have made us think differently about humans, about people, about humankind. But I mean, you've made it through that. You know something and understand something that others don't. And that's real important, I think. I mean, in my opinion, would you rather not know any of that and just be someone that's going through college?
No.
And ignorant and blissful?
Ignorant. That's those. While you were saying those words, I was thinking being ignorant,
not
that's
knowing.
Something we don't want to be.
Not understanding.
I wouldn't want to be that, and it's not that I want to go out there and experience everything the world has to offer, but
you don't.
I'm
just playing with you.
I used to think that way, and that got me in trouble. But anyway, one thing I have to say, in each branch of the service, at least in my day, and I still believe it stands today, the cadence that we do when we're marching, when we're running, the commands and the disciplines that we have to have, and the belief system that they ingrain in us in basic training, is all about protecting democracy, protecting our freedoms, and doing, no matter where we go in the world and for whatever reasons, I truly believe that every soldier that joins the military actually believes that when they go through boot camp, that they're going out there to do something good in the world.
Yeah.
No matter whatever political politicians say this or that about this war, that war, this activity of that activity, in basic training, I said, one thing I remember, I wrote a letter to a friend and said, now I know why soldiers feel so patriotic, because this is what it makes me feel like.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, man. I think young soldiers, inexperienced soldiers and warriors, Marines, airmen, sailors, they don't know what they're soldiers, man. Yeah, they don't know what they're up against. Exactly. They've heard stories, they've watched movies, they've listened to their fellow soldiers that have deployed. But the young, the F and G, the fucking new guy, they I mean, that's an acronym we use in the military, among many others, right?
You're right.
They don't know what they're up against. They don't know where they're going. But one thing I think what you touched on is they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I think a lot of them want to help people. A lot of them want to do good. They want to fight the bad guy. They want to fight the evil in the world. But what happens is reality is such a different thing. It's not like comic books, and it's not like the things that are put in movies. Reality is a different kind of thing. And the things that you face on the front lines and far reaches of the planet affect us quite differently and deeply, and sometimes in a very negative way, and not always not in a positive way. And so, but I think initially, I think you're right. People, service members from the United States, and maybe even other, maybe let's just say every army, wherever it is, feels that way.
Yeah.
Even the enemy, they believe in their country or their faction, their militia, their team. It's kind of interesting to think about it in that way. And then we question it when we come back from it all. We question whether we did good. We question whether it was ethical, moral. But we come home and we live through it, and I think hopefully most men and women who have served learn how to forgive themselves and forgive others, and find a new way to live.
And you've done a good job yourself. You've inspired me a lot. I know I joke around with you a lot.
It was all you, brother. I just maybe sparked something. Sparks
you
are
reminded
fleeting.
me that there was somebody else out there like me when it came to all these activities that you're involved in, and you open up the door for me to open up other doors to be a part of some of the things that you've been a part of.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's important to me.
and that's great.
That gives me something to do now. Like I was on a path and that completely changed. My life was turned upside down, and I felt lost. I still kind of feel lost at times. Don't know what I'm going to do, where I'm going. I mean, a lot of people feel that way. Maybe unless you have a family. I think I don't have a family, then you take care of your kids, your wife. That's a mission. That's a goal, right? It's important to have that, maybe, family, friends, support. But you're right. And we find that in the sports. When you went climbing today and you hang out with the people you're with, they're supporting you. They're keeping you safe. They're belaying you. They're keeping you safe with the ropes, and as you climb, you're putting trust in them. It's camaraderie, and I think a lot of service members seek that out, and that's what you're doing here. That's why you're in Colorado. That you want to test your mettle. You want there's a fire that burns within you, and you really want to take that to a whole nother level.
And that's what happened I had this one gentleman who decided to escort me and give me tips along the way, and he stayed with me for a pretty long time as I tried to ascend and get to the top. And
Explain what it means to ice climb. What do you wear? What kind of tools are you using?
First off, you have to dress warm, and that means that we wear what's called layers, like basically a wetsuit underneath.
Just different layers.
And
a hard shell.
And you
on the
wear
outside.
your T-shirt and stuff, and then you wear
Synthetic material.
A feather jacket, for example, a T-shirt and feather
down jacket. Yep.
And maybe a pair of jeans, and then you put your snow pants or ski pants over that. And then you wear a windbreaker so that if you get wet, right, you have that. Then you have your beanie to cover your head and your ears because it's cold in the canyon. The reason why you have ice, there's no sun in the canyon.
It's a river gorge.
It's a river gorge, exactly.
Where you're standing on a frozen river, basically. It's in the winter it gets lower and it freezes solid. And when you guys climb these cliffs, which they flow water over, they've created these pipelines. They flow water slowly. They trickle it, and the ice in the winter when it gets really cold builds up, and it creates this frozen waterfall.
Right.
And they groom it. They keep it nice and clean, and you're basically top roping. Someone's belaying you from below, and you're able to climb this 60, 70, 80-foot cliff.
It's about 80 feet, a little bit more.
Yeah. It depends on where you're climbing, but it's 60 to probably 90, 100 feet, in different places. And you're climbing this cliff, and you're starting on the bottom of the gorge, the river gorge.
Which in this case, you've had a lot of snow.
It's really cold.
So
too.
we have about 6 to 8 feet of powdered snow. So when we're walking to to the lines that are laid out already, and a belayer is already in place, and we're walking, and all of a sudden we take a step and we go 6 feet down to the river bottom because the snow is just softly laying on top, and we have to watch our step. And
yeah, and you're wearing these
places
massive spikes, crampons,
which is a good way of staying on top powdered snow. But sometimes
they're like big cleats.
boom, you go right down. And gloves also, because that's very important, because we have what we call ice tools.
Yep. They're like
And
ice axes, picks.
Kitty was my first instructor, and she used to be part of an organization called Chicks with Picks.
Chicks with picks.
You know, and that was such a cool name, and a bunch of chicks, you know, who ice climbed.
Chicks with
Awesome.
picks,
I wish
baby.
I would have been back there during her days, but
All those beautiful
she was
girls.
out there. Saturday, she was very glad to see me. She remembered me, you know, and she says, "This is how you do it." Da 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 da.
This is how you
and
do
I did
it.
I did it just like you explained to me. I did exactly like what she told me to do. She says, "Yeah." I'll do it. Then
That's
I did it
awesome.
with the other leg, and I brought my right arm. I dug it in the ice, found my sweet spot, then put it in, raised my right leg. Yeah, that's it. You got it.
That's well, it's awesome to have good leaders, good teachers, instructors showing you the way.
And you want to tell them what crampons are?
Well, crampons are these big cleats that you affix to the bottom of these boots, these specialized
Right.
boots, these fixed boots that are insulated. They have an insulator like this. They have two parts. There's an outer plastic or leather style system for the shoe, and they're fixed. They don't flex at all. What is going on? Sounds like a GoPro is going crazy. Anyway, and so you fix these crampons to the bottom of these boots, and they're huge spikes, and these spikes are, you force them into
Very sharp.
to the ice.
Right. So it's basically, you can go your right arm, one, raise your right leg, and stick it in the ice.
It's swing, kick,
Swing, kick.
and
And
you're
then
always trying to put weight in your feet and your legs.
Right.
You don't want to be hanging a lot on your arms. It's just like rock climbing. For anybody that's rock climbed, you want to be efficient with your movements.
Mm-hmm.
So it's swing. So what that does is it creates stability, and you already have your feet in the ice,
Mm-hmm.
and then you kick, and you can kick, and bring yourself up to like a crunch, and
Mm-hmm.
then you find the next hold
Right.
with the ice tools.
And what was interesting about today was that we couldn't get a hold of the ice with our feet.
It can
We
be
had
that
a
way in
big
some
chunk
places.
a big chunk of ice in front of us,
Yeah,
and it was really hard to crawl that wall. And
but you found a way.
I couldn't. Thing is, what was cool was that I was lifting weights, doing my biceps, and even at my age, okay, I've got guns now, and I'm glad I did that, because when I barely had my feet in the ice, I reached a part where I couldn't get my ice tools in the ice above me because it kept hitting ice that
Deflecting.
kept breaking.
Yeah.
And finally I had to reach higher up, and when I did,
You're
boom,
reaching
it
further.
dug in. As soon as my right arm dug in, then I dug in. Gee, that's good English, isn't it? It sounds weird, but maybe it's correct.
Yeah.
And then I did the same, reached up high with my right arm, boom, dug right in.
Yeah, you sank
Then I just
the ice
pulled
tool.
myself up because I had
Leverage there.
I had guns.
had guns.
And it just pulled myself up to the top, and Barry said, "Yeah,
You're
you
climbing
got
new
it now."
heights.
And then I went again with the right, the left, and boom, pulled myself up, right, left, boom, and next thing you know, I'm up at the top.
Yeah.
Made it, and it was awesome because I met Gerald. He says, "Hey, Larry, how you doing?" I'm like, because I'm visually impaired, people's faces are blurs to me. And I usually go by people's height or their voice or their body image. And he says, "You remember me?" And I'm like, "Dude, no, I don't." And he says, "Well, you remember when you got to the top last year?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I was the guy,
That walked
the
you
rescue guy who was up there at the top, protecting you guys."
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, and he was the belayer this weekend.
Oh, okay. He's working at the bottom then.
Working at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, you're the guy that
walked you off the top.
The rescue, your rescue, the ski rescue guy."
Yeah.
And
Ski
he
patrol,
runs.
yeah.
And he runs different countries. Like he runs in Peru, doing marathons and ultra marathons in
Absolutely.
different countries. And I said, "Yeah, you see, you're just like me. I love to do that stuff."
Well, this whole community wants to move because moving is living.
Yes, it is.
Like, I mean, if you're laying in a hole somewhere and buried alive, or buried, I mean, you're not moving, you're dead, man. I mean, that's the end of life. You're sitting on your couch at home and you're hating life and you don't move at all. I mean, how is that living?
I was at home for 20 years. VA rec therapist got me out of my house
That's great, man.
and took me on a summer National Disabled Summer Sports Clinic
So that was the start.
in San Diego.
That was the beginning.
And here I was flying on a plane.
summer
here I am
VA
cramped
clinic.
up with people. I felt claustrophobic, and I was like,
It's not all that bad, man.
"Oh shoot!" I was angry. I wasn't nice to the rec therapist when they say, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that," and I'm like, "I'm not a child. Don't talk to me." But they didn't give up on me, and they invited me to another activity and then another activity.
And that just snowballed.
And now I'm probably a social butterfly.
Oh, it's good, man.
You know,
Larry, I mean, you're inspirational. You go and you tell people about what you've experienced,
absolutely.
and you have an effect on them. They may be in a bad place, and you give them this thought, this food to think about and to digest, and then they have to make a choice personally, to come.
I think it's necessary because for 40 years nobody told me anything. And
But maybe
I
that's
don't
because
want
you were
that
isolated.
I never wanted that to happen to anybody. When I got you know what copy means?
Yeah,
You say that all the time, right?
to copy something. Yeah, to mimic.
No, when in the military, when somebody gives you an order, you say,
Oh, Roger, copy.
"Copy that,
Copy
right?
that,
Copy
Roger
that,
that.
copy that."
Affirmative.
And
Yeah,
and I hated to hear that
Wilco.
because in our day it was Roger that.
Yeah,
And when I said that when I was working for the ambulance, and they give me an address to go to and what the victim was, suffering from whatever, I say Roger that, and they say, "Okay, Roger." They never appreciated anything
Well, it's because they don't know the military
because
lingo.
they didn't know. And now I hear copy that.
It's like
copy
if I
that,
say
copy that.
Lima Charlie. What does that mean? Loud and clear.
Yeah.
That's just phonetic alphabet.
Yeah.
I read you Lima Charlie. I mean, I read you loud and clear. But people don't know what that means. If you Foxtrot Uniform Charlie Kilo.
What do you think? How these organizations are doing today, and what direction you think they should go in or continue to go in? What do you think?
What do I think they should do?
If I may ask a question.
Absolutely. You can ask whatever you want, man. This is a conversation. I don't think they should do whatever they want. The cool thing is in our country, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations that offer different kinds of opportunities, whether that's hunting, skiing, climbing, hiking, swimming, kayaking, paddling, whatever it may be. And they do it in different ways. They do it for veterans. They do it for paraplegics. They do it for civilians. They do it for amputees. They do it for the visually impaired, the blind, everything and everybody in between, even people that don't have any kind of problem. physical problem, maybe just mental stress, post-traumatic stress, psychological trauma. And the cool thing is if you get on Google, if you get on the internet and you do some research and you don't keep yourself in a bubble, you don't hide away in where you live, in your home, in your living room, there's something that may inspire you to live life again, to go do something, to move. And there's room for improvement in every organization and every group. But I mean, the cool thing is you can find a group or an organization to do something with that can change your whole life, give you reason to live, give you reason to pursue something.
And I call that options.
That's options. It's opportunity.
You know, we have options, and a lot of times we were at a store and the lady was talking about a car accident she had, and she kept talking and talking and talking, and I kept telling her, well, talk to your lawyer.
Yeah.
They'll take care of your situation completely. Then she went back to talking about her problem.
Yeah.
Back talking about the problem. And then I referred back to call the lawyer first thing in the morning. You're off tomorrow? She said, yeah. I said, what time you get up? She told me what time. I said, after breakfast, call him. Then she went back to talking about the problem.
Well, that's
So
because
it's
people talk about negative things.
there are options out there, but you have to be willing to be a part of that. But there are a lot more choices today. And when I attend my blind group meeting at our VA in Miami, I tell them where I've been, where I've gone, and what I'm doing, and what I plan to do in the future.
That's a great thing, man.
Just so that they can say, hey, we don't have to just sit at home. Because I did it for 20 years. Well, and now every other month I'm doing something. Every other month.
Man, that's a good thing, man. Because there's always an option and there's always a choice. Some are more negative than others. I mean, I mean, sitting in court fighting people, I think is a negative thing. But if it has to be done, so be it. But the great thing that people can choose to latch onto is improving themselves, improving their mind and their body. And there's something about pursuing something that challenges you personally, that challenges you as a human being, your body, your mind. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't be competitive with another person. Be competitive with yourself. John and I were talking about that earlier. Because if you're competitive with yourself, you're probably always going to be struggling. You're always going to be fighting to be better. Because your mind has a tactical advantage over you. It knows your weaknesses, right? It knows your flaws. When you're laying there in the bed, you know that you're lazy. You know that you're tired. You know that you don't want to get up and do something. Your brain knows this. But if you're conscious of that and you can fight that and you can and pursue the things that will change your life, be competitive with yourself, then you're always fighting. You're always struggling to live harder and be stronger. And that's important. And I think that's what you're saying. And the cool thing about what these organizations across the country offer is an opportunity, an outlet to seek a challenge and to be competitive with yourself. And that's what I've done with my life, and that's how I've rebuilt my life and made myself stronger after loss of sight and it's not been easy. It's a struggle that I'll live with. It'll be something I'll live with my whole life. But Larry, man, I really appreciate what you've shared with us tonight, with the viewers, and you've been very honest and open. And it's hard to do that. Not everybody wants to do that. So thanks for being on the show. I think.
Thank you, Steve, for inviting me, and it's good to see you here, and it's good to see your new house and the fact that you're continuing to educate.
I'm learning myself, brother. Every day, man. Every day.
See, what's great about Steve is that we're basically about the same height, not quite the same weight, but we wear the same clothes. So I didn't have Miami, Florida. I don't have these winter clothes. So last year when I went ice climbing, was not prepared with the proper clothes. And
Yeah,
she
yeah.
says, "Oh, you need to wear this. So you need to wear that. So here you can wear this, and you can wear this of mine and that of mine."
Yeah, oh yeah.
But
Well,
this
I mean,
year I have.
You've been ready. You were
I've been
prepared.
prepared.
But because you learn, man. You learn.
learn
You
from
learn something.
Yeah. So
Well, Larry, I think
thank you very much for having me. By the
no,
way.
man. I think we're gonna wrap it up. I want to say goodbye to everybody. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Baskis
Absolutely.
360. You know,
Basket 360.
you've been drinking too much, Larry.
No, I have an implant put in, and I only have half my teeth right now.
You're beautiful. You look good to me, man. But yeah, Baskis360.com. That's B as in Bravo, ASKIS 360.com.
360, yes.
You check it out. Go to the YouTube channel. And we're on podcasts, different podcast catchers. So check us out. Good night, everybody.